One of the other things I wanted to be able to ask you about is why is the margin of error for smaller businesses so small in comparison to the larger businesses? I know one right off the top, they tend to have more to lose, and they probably don't have the budget to be able to put behind burying something the way that somebody else would. But what are some of the things that you see when it comes to that? Because the margin of error is small, and I don't think there's enough people to think about that part.
And you mentioned the 2 top ones, right?
Yeah.
Have more to lose. They don't have the money or the budget to kinda save themselves. And 3, since you are a smaller business, you're supposed to be for the people, right? You have more access. I have more access to a smaller business rather than a bigger business, right? I can talk
Hmm.
to the CEO of a smaller business. I can't necessarily talk to Elon Musk on a day-to-day basis. I can't call him up and say, "Yo, I ain't like the way this car drive." Right? I
Right.
can't do that. So because they have more access to you, it's going to be a lot harder, right? It's going to be a lot more tense, a lot more harsh, right? I'm going to critique you a little bit different, right?
Mm.
I'm going to judge people in my community more harshly than somebody that I don't really know, right? So
True.
that's another reason. But in order to kind of at that, just be more human, right? I can't say it enough. Be more authentic, like be open, right? If
Love
you
that.
are a smaller business and you do encounter like a problem, like a bad sell, right? That bad review, that's bad PR. That's bad publicity. And I
Hmm.
don't care what nobody says. I don't care if you heard it in movies. Not all publicity is good, right? And in order to kind of maintain your image and your reputation when you do encounter those, be accountable. Go be above and beyond, right? If you do something wrong, do 2 things good, right? Make it a story. Kind of take what you was alluding to, control the narrative, right?
Yeah.
Take control of your narrative. And so many times when we face a problem, right, that's out of our hands or we think it's out of our hands, especially as a small business, we just let it spiral. Let it
Hmm.
snowball, right? It reaches the media outlets, it reaches other people in the community, it reaches other customers. We just let that bad review just be a bad review on Google. And we never comment and we never do these things and we never try to take control of it. And that's kind of the beginning of the end in a sense, because when you let something spiral, it's only going to get bigger, right? And now when you try
Hmm.
to be like, all right, it's time to settle this, it's time to handle this, it's already too much. And now you have to kind of dig deep in your pockets, right? Which you don't have money because you're a small business, right? Now you're looking at like, okay, how do I solve this problem? And it's a little too late, right? A
Yeah.
bigger business can just say, let's see if it goes away. Oh, it didn't go
Mm.
away. Yo, spiral to this. All right, let's put $100,000 behind this. Oh, that didn't work. Let's put 1,000,000. We're good. We're good. Small businesses can't do that, and that's kind of the difference.
Right. At what point do people usually realize that there's a reputation problem? Like, what's the wake up call? For me, I know one of the things that people that stands out to me is when the phone stops ringing. Like when it starts to hit you in the pocket, and
Mhm.
you start to go, well, what's going on? That's when you start to research and try to figure out, like, okay, well, I know what the norm is. And now I'm starting to notice that it hasn't been normal for a little while now. So when do you start to notice that people realize they have a reputation problem? And what's the wake up call that you know normally see?
Well, like you said, the pockets. People, when you talk about business, business is essentially about making money.
Mm.
When something stops you from making money, that's when you start realizing, right? And that's the problem that I see in a lot of small businesses, right? They only notice it, the crisis or the problem or that your reputation is falling when your money stop coming in, right? And now, like I said, it's a snowball effect. It's hard to
Mhm.
recover from that. But another time is when you're not getting the opportunities, right? So
Yeah.
not just the money, but the access to the opportunities that would give you an authoritative position, right? To give you a little bit of power, get you in certain rooms, right? When you start making calls and nobody's answering, you're like, I wonder why they're not answering. Or I try to go in this room and I say my name and it's not ringing doorbells, and it's like,
Hmm.
whoa, 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 nah, we good, we good. Nice seeing you though, but but we're
Yeah.
this is a little private. This is a little private, right? So when companies or brands start losing those opportunities, missing out on 'em, and not getting those phone calls, or they not getting that money, that's usually when they come.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. One of the biggest things that I always try to remind people is it's not just what you do, but it's who's talking about you in rooms that you're not in. And what they're saying is something that is really going to drive or, your business in a good direction or a bad direction. So you control the narrative as much as you can, but you also give them something that they can turn around and say. You give them a story, and as long as it's a good story, they'll tell that story in a way that helps you. But if it's not a good story, then I know where that can actually hurt you at the same time. I know from the corporate side, there used to be publishers and they had their own Slack channel. And it was something where they would get in the Slack channel and there were people that would reach out and try to get deals and things going. And they never stood a chance because as soon as they mentioned that person's name, they would go into the Slack channel and say, "Tell me about this guy." And they were like, "Oh, yeah, I had a bad experience. There was this, there was this, there was this." And there were people that were struggling and they couldn't figure out why. And it's because of that Slack channel, and people didn't even know the Slack channel existed until getting to know some of those people. They were like, "Oh, yeah, I mean, we got a little Slack channel." It's like, "Oh, that explains everything." And then we start finding out who was in the channel, and it's just knowing who's in some of these rooms, you have to figure out how to be able to be spoken well in rooms that you're not in.